So I'm Laura Capalabra and I run a company called No More Ifs or Buts, and I work with business owners, senior managers, entrepreneurs and people who are interested in having a more successful life. So today we're talking about stress, and I'm going to give you some stress warning signs to watch out for in yourself and others around you. And we're going to discuss why some stress is good for you, and I'm also going to share you some top tips with dealing with the downsides of stress. So we're going to be focusing more on work-related stress, but many of the principles apply to all parts of your life. So the first thing and the most important thing to remember is everyone experiences stress, but some use it to succeed and others use it as an excuse when they fail. So I had a client recently come to me who had reached their self-diagnosed breaking point at work. They got into the office early and they were busy working through some emails. And as people started to arrive, it got busier and louder in the office, and the phone started ringing and more emails started to fly in. And a couple of people came past her desk to ask questions, and then the fire alarm went off. It was a drill. They happened every 6 months. But today her reaction was to burst into tears and to run to the toilets. And my client had been keeping on top of her workload and really trying to focus on what she needed to do. So when the unexpected surprise of having to all leave the building and do a roll call kicked in, this threw her. She didn't have time for this. How dare they do it now? Don't they know how much work she has to do? She felt like it was some kind of joke or even a punishment for something. And she isn't alone. Almost half of Britons consider themselves stressed, and 27% of those people consider themselves close to breaking point. That's 1 in 10 people feeling close to breaking point in this country. And did you know that 42% of days lost in the UK in businesses are stress related? So as a company, that's a significant amount of time and money. And the financial cost of that to the whole of the UK has been estimated at £60 billion, or £1,000 per person. So that's why we work with businesses to offer career coaching as a company support mechanism, to try and reduce this number right down, to look after people's mental health and well-being. And you might look around at people you work with and your family or friends and think, how do they do it? They seem so in control, yet they always sound like they've got a world of things to do. I've only got half the amount of things to worry about and I feel out of control. How do they do it? By the way, they're probably experiencing stress too. Everyone deals with stress differently, and some people get a buzz from the pressure that other people loathe. And stress makes people succeed quicker, but some people let stress stop them achieving what they want to. And you have the ability to change the way that you relate to stress, and that's what we're talking about today. You're probably listening to this because you're feeling stressed, and so let's work together to make sure you don't feel stressed, but you feel in control. And that's what stress makes us feel. It's normally we feel out of control, feel overwhelmed, and like you're juggling 100 things, and any second they're all going to fall down. And that's how we all feel. Something happens and there's a physical manifestation, but most people feel out of control. Symptoms of stress can come from your home life, from your relationships, but very often it comes from work. And I've been in your position before. I've had a long old relationship with stress, and I now let stress push me to do more. I thrive on it, and you can too. But I'm not special. I've had unexplained rashes, I've had dull headaches, which I don't think were always to do with the wine, and I've had high blood pressure, and most of all, I've had many a sleepless night. And those are just a few of the things that people experience. Everyone is different and everyone has their own mini concoction of symptoms. To give you a bit of a personal story, in the final year of university, I had this rash on my arms and legs, and it didn't hurt, but it didn't look very attractive. At university, this is very important. And it was just a bit odd. And I went to the doctors and they gave me allergy tests and nothing came up. And I tried various creams and nothing changed. It was only when a friend of mine came home from a week away and said how he'd had a similar rash before, and it was stress. And then it clicked into place. I felt fine. I didn't feel stressed. But I was doing my dissertation and I was working 40 hours a week. I was living in a very loud student house. And that was it. I was stressed. And within 2 days it had gone. When I acknowledged that I had a lot on my plate and I realised that I hadn't been taking care of myself properly, not eating enough, drinking too much, not moving away from my chair, getting any exercise, I knew these things were things I had to change. And over the years, now I've learned to manage it. It's given me a higher capacity for work, and being in more control has meant that I now make better decisions. I make more money, and I make myself happier because of being able to control my stress. So people think that stress goes hand in hand with success in business, and the more senior you get, the more stressful your life is. And that's why you get paid the big bucks, right? But it doesn't work like that. As far as I'm concerned, you progress in your career because of your skills and experience. And that should make your life easier and more efficient the more senior you get. You've got a back catalogue of tried and tested experiences and approaches to situations. But it can feel really overwhelming, and it can feel like when you own your own business or reach a point in your career where all you're wishing is that you went back to when you were a junior. You know, when you were an office junior and the biggest things you had to worry about that day was stapling all the photocopies or whether or not it was making cups of tea. Bring back those stress-free days, is what we say. So when you've recognised that you're suffering the negative effects from stress, it's time to do something about it and retain control of your career and achieve your next goal. And for a lot of people, it's trying to understand what your next goal is. And it can be what sounds simple or not simple to you is control your stress before you get to the next stage. Everyone's body reacts differently, as we've said, and you can't necessarily change how your body reacts to stress. It's a clever thing, your body, and it gives us these little signs just so you know to be aware and to stay in control. It's hormones like the adrenaline and the cortisol that give you this rush, and some people love this rush, and some people are scared of it. So have a little think about these questions and see what your answers are. How do you know when you're stressed? Do you see something different? Do you feel your emotions change? Do you do strange things that you don't do at any other point? Where do you feel stress in your body? Do you get tense shoulders, or do you find your hands get tense? How do you behave when you're getting stressed out? And do you snap at people close to you? Do you spend ages trying to make the easy decision, like what to have for lunch or what to wear that day for work? Do you find yourself zoning out in the middle of a conversation? Have you ever noticed yourself doing any of these things and have realised you may well be stressed? Does it scare you? Do you carry on doing what you were doing, or do you change your plan? How do you currently cope with stress? You're here because you want to learn more, but do you already have any techniques that you're using already? Everyone has different approaches, and I won't have time to cover them all here. You might have heard of fight or flight. When the stress kicks in and the hormones get released, do you fight and get spurred on and get excited by the pressure? Or do you try to run the other way? Or do you just freeze, unable to move? So if you find yourself putting your head in the sand, trying to ignore the hundreds of things that you have to do, this is you in flight mode. And that's what we need to address. And away from work, a Which survey found that divorce is the most stressful life event, with 78% of people finding it stressful. And then we've all heard about how buying or selling a house is really stressful too. Well, that goes in at 70% of people find that stressful. And just over half of people found having a child stressful. It's supposed to be this joyous occasion, but half people found it a stressful experience to go through in their life. 53% of people find getting married stressful. And stress at home, at work, in relationships, maybe you can deal with some of these. Well, maybe some push you more than others. Some pressures are more stressful to some people than other people. But there are signs and there are physical and mental things to make you realise you need to address the situation before you reach breaking point. That breaking point could be crying in the toilets, in your office, having some kind of physical reaction, something awful like a heart attack. It could be an emotional reaction where you consider you're taking your own life. And these things don't come out of nowhere. There are signs, and these are the signs that we need to be addressed. And these are the things that we can look out for in other people as well. So those people that aren't quite ready to understand what is causing their stress at the moment, if we can help them recognise that they have an issue, that's a good starting point. You need to get to know your body. We need to know how we react to stress. So I know for me, it's not sleeping. It's slipping out of routine. It's the not being in control that can make my head spin. And I'm not about to harp on about some mumbo jumbo stuff. I'm not about to suggest you shave your head, run around naked and move to a remote island. Although these things are all wonderful, I'm talking about just knowing what's normal in your world and what isn't. And acknowledging that actually, even if you follow some of our tips and techniques, you will be able to improve your relationship with stress. And therefore your opportunity for success. How many of these sound familiar? Okay, so you may have been suffering from some of these issues, but how bad is it? Is it okay one day and not the next? Well, that's okay. Everyone has bad days. If it's you experiencing for a number of days on the trot, you need to start taking notice. So think about regret. Do you regret being angry or short-tempered with others? Are you feeling overwhelmed? You don't know where to turn. Are you using alcohol, smoking, drugs to cope with the stress, prescription, counter or street drugs? Are you having sleep problems? Do you find yourself not sleeping very much? And also the opposite way, do you find yourself suddenly sleeping a lot more than what you used to? Laughing or smiling less than you used to? Yelling, crying, withdrawing a lot from the people around you, feeling sad, disappointed or worried, eating too much or again too little when you're stressed. People react in different ways. Do you feel like you've lost control of your life? Are you having trouble letting go of things that are bothering you? And do you blame yourself or think that nothing goes right? So if 4 or more of those things ring a bell, then you'll experience high levels of stress, and we need to work out how to deal with this. And people say stress is a bad thing, and they say, God, how stressful, you must be really stressed. Don't be so stressy. And I want to dispel this myth. I want you to learn to love stress. It isn't going to happen straight away, but I want you to set on that path. Okay, so how do we cope with it? And that's the main thing that we need to think about with stress. It's how we deal with it, how we manage it, and how we recognise it. How do we make it our friend? Workload is the number one cause of workload stress in the labour force survey. Planning is really important. And as I've said before, a lot of feeling stressed is feeling out of control. And that can happen when there's a lot going on and it feels like there's too much for you to do with too little time. So here's no more ifs or buts plan. So plan is easy to remember, checklist for you to think about when looking at your list of things to do. Work, but also home admin and life admin as well. So prevent important things from becoming urgent by spending time on them now before they become time sensitive. Limit the time spent on doing unimportant but urgent things. They're so unlikely to offer you the satisfaction of achieving your goals. Assess whether work being given to you will help you achieve your goals. And no, just say no. Don't take on work that you can't deliver with your current workload. And it's plan. By taking an organised and systematical approach to our time, will massively reduce the impact of stress. Planning is just part of it and can help with your time management and control. So hopefully you've picked up a few tips, something has inspired you to think a bit differently, or at least it's giving you something to pass on to someone else who you think might need some support. And if you're interested in working with us to take control of your life and understand a little bit more career coaching, then obviously feel free to get in contact. I hope you found this useful. Check out our website for other videos and follow us on YouTube and Facebook. Thank you very much. I was Laura from No More Ifs or Buts.